Hello everyone. I wanted to do a recording to talk about how to be a better player in BloodHunt. With that known, I want to first talk about early access. I'm well aware that this is early access, but a lot of what I'm about to say in terms of the tactics will likely remain the same, assuming the gameplay doesn't change all that much. The guns might change though. That for sure has a chance to be buffed or nerfed, and that will for sure change the tactics on that front. But as far as the actual gameplay tactics, that likely won't change. Also, I've said this before in past recordings, but I'll say it again. Use early accesses to your advantage. The great thing about early accesses is that people are expecting you to be new. But once it hits full release, that's when you'll start seeing all the gatekeeping, people getting upset, so on and so forth. So it's best to make your mistakes and goof off during early access than full release is what I'm trying to tell you. That out of the way, let's talk about being bloodthirsty. I've seen this happen before in other battle royales. I think Apex is probably the worst example, but there are just people that are too dang bloodthirsty. I understand that people, enjoy action, want the kills and all that, but in battle royales, even Apex, it lowers your chance of winning by a dramatic amount. Just look at how many teams you get eliminated in Apex when everybody drops, what is it, Fracture or Fractal? It's the tall buildings next to the big ice thing. Yeah, just notice how many teams get eliminated there. It's just kind of like, why? Would you do that in any battle royale? You're not only wasting everybody's time through the queue, but you're also wasting their time of getting to that point in the game. Just be patient. It's not that difficult to do. It's a choice for you to be bloodthirsty, and you need to not do that. More so in BloodHunt than any of the other BRs, and I'll get to that in just in a second or two. Okay, with that said, let's talk about the vertical fight. In BloodHunt, you can climb any object, even the tall cranes. There is nothing that is out of bounds except for the water. You can't go in the water, but everything else is fair game. That means that the team who has, team or person that has the height advantage has the greatest chance of winning due to the fact of survivability and damage drop-offs. Only a few guns have very little damage drop-off, and that's going to be your marksman rifle and your sniper. But other than that, the other guns will drop off pretty hard. So it helps you not only survive longer throughout the course of the game, but also ensures that there are very few people who can hit you. That brings me into the patience part. Now I can tie in the whole vertical and bloodthirsty parts together. In BloodHunt, you want to be as patient as possible because you don't want to give up your advantage of height. You also don't want to attack teams too early. The only time that you want to attack a team is if you can guarantee that kill. Well, or think you can guarantee the kill. Because if you don't guarantee the kill, they have the ability to revive on their own. Also, all guns have, I should say firearms. All firearms have bullet tracers. It's very easy to figure out where you are after you open fire. The second you open fire is the second you reveal your position to the entire group that's over there. And for that matter, any other group that you may not have seen. So yes, keep to heights, don't attack, be patient. Use tactics to your advantage. If that means skirting around the edges, so be it. Just be patient. An opportunity will present itself. Yes, I know it's boring and people don't have patience, but that's the point of a battle royale, surviving. If you don't like that, go play Call of Duty with multiplayer or something like that. There are plenty of games that reward you for being impatient, but battle royales, they do require patience to a certain degree, some more than others. BloodHunt is for sure one of them. So, yeah, with that out of the way, let me talk about guns now. The problem with the guns is that the game doesn't cancel reloads. If you try to switch to another gun, after you start reload, it won't. The only thing that you can do is to try and keep a mental math of how many bullets you've fired. And if you think that you're low, just switch to your other gun and reload it, the main gun, the one you just switched off of, at a later date. That's unfortunately the only way to counter this. The other thing, too, you can kind of do for yourself is use guns that have a fast reload. That's going to be pretty much any gun besides the shotguns, the LMG, and I think the crossbow is kind of slow, but somebody else might have a different experience. That said, there are certain guns that are very valuable and work well in the right hands. I'll start with the two-handed crossbow and one-handed crossbow. There's a big difference between the two-handed crossbow and the one-handed crossbow. The one-handed crossbow fires explosive bolts, whereas the two-handed fires a gas cloud. The AoE on the two-handed crossbow is going to be a lot larger than the one-handed. So, if you do manage to get that height advantage, like I was saying earlier, you can lob basically gas clouds wherever you need to on unsuspecting enemies, and it's very hard for them to avoid it because of how big the AoE is. So, even though the crossbow does have a slow reload, if you manage to keep a height advantage, it actually will do a lot more for you than other guns because it does a lot of initial damage, and it does a lot of damage over time. As a matter of fact, once you start getting into, I think it's the blue. I'm not sure if the green can do it, but the blue for sure can. All it takes is one gas cloud from a blue crossbow to kill a downed enemy. So yes, it's a very powerful gun if you use it well. Okay, marksman rifle and sniper rifles. So like I was saying earlier, bullet tracers are a thing, so even if you are pretty good with the distant combat, there's a good chance that people will see it and come to you. So yeah, I would say that marksman rifle is probably better than sniper rifle because it has a similar range profile, but it's semi-auto and it's unlikely that you'll miss eventually, because if you miss your first shot, it's very easy to lead up with a second shot. So I would say marksman rifle is more valuable than the sniper rifle. For that reason, and also because of awareness. The marksman rifle doesn't have a scope in function like the sniper does, so it allows you to maintain awareness at all times. If you are going to use a long-range precision weapon, I would say do a marksman rifle instead of that. There is an alternative to the marksman rifle, but it just won't have the range, and that's the toggler. The great thing about the toggler is that it's very high damage and has the ability to switch between single and auto, though it's highly unlikely you'll need to switch to single because the rate of fire is so slow, it's easy to fire 2 bursts at a time if you're good with your trigger control. If you're good with your trigger control, then it's very easy to fire the amount of bullets you want, even on full auto. But switching to single can make it more accurate. Now, the toggler does hit harder than the marksman rifle at the correct ranges, and it will actually hit harder than even the assault rifle. So it does reward you for being accurate. It has a very slow rate of fire, so be aware of that and make sure you're leading your targets and being aware of where they are. Let's talk about which guns you should use if you're not precise. If you don't think that you're going to be able to use the crossbow, marksman rifle, or toggler, then I would highly recommend running an AR with a Tommy gun. The great thing about the Tommy gun is that it has a higher capacity magazine as you go up in the rarities. It gets up to 60 rounds in the magazine at purple color. That's going to be a bit different than the silenced SMG, which is only 40 at gold. So you get a very large magazine advantage with it. So yes, if you're not good with aim, Tommy gun for sure, and then the AR. The AR is just, like any game, very versatile. It's just there, it works where you point it, so it's very friendly. That leads me into the guns that I do not recommend, and that's the shotguns. The problem with the shotguns is they're way too situational. And on top of that, they have an even slower rate of fire than most other firearms that I just mentioned. So there is a very good chance that you'll miss. However, if you wish to go against my recommendation, then by all means, the pump shotgun can hit for up to 120 damage, assuming all pellets hit at close range. That means, assuming your enemy doesn't have any armor, it takes 2 shots to knock, which is actually kind of insane, but then you have to also think about how much time you have to spend doing so. Then you have to top in the fact that it has a slow reload time on the pump, so yeah, that's why I just don't recommend it. I would just sooner run some of the other guns that were mentioned. I would sooner run dual pistol over that, because at least that has a little bit more accuracy. That's the other gun that I won't recommend, but yeah, so those are guns. Let's talk about resonance now. Blood resonance is that thing you see in the bottom left corner below your health bar. They have different symbols to indicate which blood resonance you have. 2 deal with your left and right ability cooldowns. You have 1 that deals with melee damage. You have 1 that's health regen. And did I miss any? No, I don't think I did. Okay, so blood resonance is that down there. Now, you can only have 3 at the start. You can only have 3 resonance points at the start. Now, if you start executing players, you can get up to a total of 7 throughout the game. I'll talk about that in a minute, but you can get up to 7. I would prioritize Sanguine, which is the health regeneration. Here's why I recommend this for any player, whether you be new or experienced. The game, like any other game, has a lot of RNG involved. You can't guarantee that you'll have heals all the time through the blood bags or blood syringes, or for that matter, if you have a Muse in your party. Not very many people play the Muse, I've noticed, but either way, you can't guarantee that all the time. Sanguine, however, alters that because now it gives you that ability to do a lot of peeking. So if you are going to have to engage somebody, you can peek out, take a few hits, and just go back and regen. The total health regen is 3 per second, which is a very big amount, assuming you give it time to do its job. So, yes, it's very, very good. If you are playing a character, though, where team play is necessary, though, then you might switch off Sanguine, but I would still focus on it. So, yeah, just kind of keep that in mind. Let's talk about the execution, diablorization, as it's called. Okay, so while you can get your health back and you can get more resonance points through diablorization, it might not be a good idea to do in certain situations. That's because diablorization takes a couple of seconds to fully do, and you can be interrupted in the process of that, assuming you get shot by either that team member's team shooting at you or a third party for that matter. So you can kill a lot quicker using a Tommy gun than you can diablorization. Try to keep that in mind. Just think about the risk versus reward, right? If you think that you can use your Tommy gun to get rid of the person and then move on, then do it. If you think that you can do the diablorization, do it. But if diablorization's not safe, then just do the Tommy gun. That's just how you have to think about it. But you want to make that decision pretty quickly due to the fact that they have self-revives in this game. Okay, that brings me into clans now. So I've seen a lot of videos saying that the Prowler and the Siren are meta, and I don't agree with this to a certain level. I'll go and try to explain this. As I mentioned earlier, it's all about the vertical fight. So having any ability to do with either gaining that vertical advantage or keeping that vertical advantage is going to be a lot better in the long run over other options. That said, the Muse is actually really good for the rooftop patience game because the Muse's heal works on yourself as well as your teammates, and it only has a 16-second cooldown. You just have to be aware that it channels and you need time to do it. I would say the Siren's pretty good, but it's more of a close range or a defensive, positioned-based archetype. Because the AoE on that blind, or flash, or whatever you want to call it, is not very large. You have to be within almost melee range for that to function. So while it certainly is good, the problem is just how close it is. Muse is just more versatile because it's just like, well, now you don't have to rely on items or Sanguine being available to you. So yeah, I would say Muse is certainly more viable, or at least more versatile than Siren. But either or will work because of that projection ability. I'll get to that in just a minute. The other alternative I would recommend is Clan Bruja because of that Wayward Leap. The Wayward Leap has a lot more range than the Toreador's projection. So it makes it a lot easier to keep that vertical advantage if you're going from rooftop to rooftop using that versus the projection. But it has its disadvantages, and I'll get into that now. So with the Toreadors, its projection can be used either to get to the next rooftop, or it could actually be used as a quick step. Let's just say in a scenario, you have the height advantage and you down a team below you. Well, now you have to deal with finishing them off so they don't revive. The great thing about the Toreador's projection thing is it works either way. You can use it for getting around, or you can use it to get back. So what you can do in that scenario is cast your projection right on top of you, jump down, start shooting, and then right before the timer runs out, click back on your projection so you go right back to the roof. It's going to take a bit of practice to get that down because it won't automatically teleport you. So you do have to get the timing down, and you have to be aware of how fast it will take you to kill. But if you can master that, the Toreadors are actually really good. Let me go and finish this by talking about Clan Nosferatu. Okay, so the reason I disagree with the Prowler being meta is, while yes, it's great to be aware of your enemies, the problem is your bats are visible to everyone within the vicinity. So unless they're wounded, that's really only the safe way to be aware of the enemy if you're playing Prowler. But sending out the bats is just a quick way to let people know you're there. The second you throw your bats at somebody and they reveal somebody, they'll spin around, and look for you, or they'll run away. So you don't want to do that to yourself because then you lose the advantage. Like I was saying earlier, it's all about height advantage and being patient. And unfortunately, the Prowler forces those advantages away. Saboteur is kind of a similar story. So let me talk about that. The problem with Saboteur is that those traps work a lot like the bats, in that once somebody sees it, assuming they're not complete potato, then they'll know that there's a Saboteur in the area. Assuming that the player is actually smart, what they can do is they can point their camera up. Because it's a third-person BR, what you can do is you can rotate or elevate your camera in such a way that you can shed some light on a Prowler that's just sitting near its trap. Because it's translucent, I guess is the word for it. If there's enough light in the background, you can actually see the Prowler cloaked. I've noticed this before when aiming up at Prowlers sitting on roofs and stuff like that. So, yeah, gas traps, they just give away your position like the bats, and their stealth, it only works against potato players. Really is all it is, because it's possible to look for it. All it takes is having the wrong background or the wrong line to be seen. But that said, assuming you can get somewhere high up like a crane, you could possibly make it work even against skilled players, but that's a very slim chance once more players get familiar with this game. Once I get familiar with this game, I think they'll probably see the same thing that I did. So yeah, that's kind of like all I can really say on the game for right now. But yeah, I wish you all the best with this game, and I hope you enjoy it.